Joe has a terrible history in the black community, and everybody just loves him because he's the fluffy old guy.
Now, it's no surprise that Joe Biden is incredibly disliked by people on the left. But something that I've found kind of surprising since Biden announced his candidacy is that the mass media is also willing to be critical of Joe Biden. So MSNBC interviewed a couple of voters who were very critical of Joe Biden. Watch.
I've been talking to voters here all morning, a wide, diverse group of opinions about this race. What I have been struck by is the almost unanimity about some skepticism still about Biden, some work that he is still going to have to do to convince voters that he is the right man for this particular moment. Take a listen to some of these conversations.
It doesn't, because I don't really believe in it, just because I don't think you beat something so far right with something so middle ground. Joe Biden is very middle ground for me, and I think you need something a little more far left to combat that.
Yeah, he's Uncle Joe. Everybody likes their fluffy uncle. But he's Barack Obama's friend. He's got the cool black friend, right? That's all it is. Joe has a terrible history in the black community, and everybody just loves him because he's the fluffy old guy. He has given us no policies, and I like Joe Biden, but he's
Doesn't
just
sound
not.
like it.
I do like Joe Biden as a vice president.
So apart from the comments from these voters, which I'll get to in a second, just the very fact that MSNBC was willing to highlight this shows you a clear difference in direction when compared to other candidates in the race. So they'll gladly show clips like this if it's about Bernie Sanders or about Elizabeth Warren. But when it gets to someone like Kamala Harris or Pete Buttigieg, they really do not highlight the kind of critiques that are being thrown from voters and from, analysts and commentators in general at those candidates. They're willing to do it with Biden and Bernie and Warren, but they're more protective of Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg. Now, the comments here are just completely spot on. I mean, the first voter there saying that Joe Biden is too middle ground and you need someone more far left to beat Donald Trump. I completely agree. You need somebody to actually be able to get out and excite voters with a bold new message, with challenging the powerful, with calling out these corporations and the wealthy that are turning the knobs behind the scenes directly. So you have someone like Bernie Sanders, who has a 40-year history of doing that, and Elizabeth Warren, who's also hitting on a lot of those same notes, highlighting that exact critique of this rigged system. Meanwhile, Joe Biden, as I've done countless videos on, is bathing in the rigged system. He decided to go and meet with big donors instead of holding campaign events over the holiday weekend, just as one example. The second voter there also made some great comments. Biden is just essentially Obama's friend. That's all he is. And this is somebody who says he likes Biden. So this is where I think a lot of Biden's appeal is, just in terms of Biden has a personality, I guess, that a lot of people are attracted to. I don't really get it, but I understand it in the sense that Biden has this veneer that he is like your average Joe. He's just your average guy until you dive into his history on these actual issues, how he's been on the wrong side of practically every issue his entire career, how he's fought for Wall Street and credit card companies. Joe Biden is not your average Joe. He pretends to be on the surface, but ultimately he is just as bad, if not worse, than the vast majority of politicians that are already in Washington. So again, I do think people will begin to wake up to this. And another aspect of this is I don't think Joe Biden has any real growth potential. I mean, everybody knows who Joe Biden is because he was Obama's VP. So there is no real growth for Biden. The only real movement that Biden potentially has is to go down. So because his name recognition is so high, because people have already made up their minds about who Biden is in many cases, the only worry for Biden, or the only movement for Biden is really to go down. He has nowhere to go up. Everybody knows who Biden is. Now, you could potentially say the same thing about Bernie Sanders as well, but I think because Elizabeth Warren is riding on a lot of the same message that Sanders is, she is kind of cutting into Bernie's support there a little bit. Now, I will say, I do think Bernie is clearly above Warren in terms of him having a strong, long record on these issues and fighting for these issues in the face of the powerful. So Warren, while she says a lot of the right things and her policy proposals recently have been fantastic, she doesn't have the political strategy behind it. This is somebody who was not willing to endorse Bernie over Hillary Clinton in the 2016 primaries, even though we all know that Warren would support Bernie's policies over what Hillary Clinton was offering. Warren, time and again, has shown an unwillingness to challenge power. Now, with that said, in this campaign at least, she has been willing to challenge Joe Biden. So she has put her record up against his. She has called out his attachment to Wall Street and to credit card companies. So she is at least willing to do that right now. And I think it helps that she's actually lower in the polls. It gives her more of an ability, more freedom to really be on the attack. I think if she was leading, she would not be attacking her opponents. But because she is behind, she right now has nowhere to go but up. So she is more willing to attack Biden on those various issues. But as I've said before, I think once we pass some of the debates and get into September, October, there is going to be a shift in the polls. I really do think that Biden is going to lose a lot of support, and I think that Bernie and Warren will continue to rise. Now, Kamala Harris and Buttigieg, I think, are kind of wild cards. I saw Kamala Harris in a recent town hall. I thought she was completely boring, just dispassionate, didn't really seem to care about the issues she was talking about. She seemed very staged, very fake. I'm not sure if that's the fault of her aides or her choice to do that, but I think if she had the freedom to be more of herself, then she would do better. But also, Harris has a pretty bad record as well, but before she got into politics. So, and Buttigieg is just an empty shell. Buttigieg is an empty vessel for big donors. So again, Kamala Harris and Buttigieg, I don't trust them to actually fight for any progressive policy. Warren, I trust her on some of the issues, but I don't think she would ever go as far as Bernie is willing to go. So I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts on Biden, and do you think he'll be able to hold the support that he has so far, or do you think it's gonna go away? Let me know.